Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
No shirts, no pants off. That's basically our life right now.
Dangerous and historic. The heat wave baking BC. How long will it last? Also,
physicians would recommend older people stay inside and stay cool.
how BC's most vulnerable are faring with the soaring temperatures and what you can do to help. And BC's vaccine effectiveness, the protection we're seeing from the shots.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Well, it seems to be the only thing people are talking about. It's still hot and the heat isn't going away. Lytton, BC broke Canada's all-time temperature record again today at 47.5 degrees Celsius. Katie Nicholson now on the impacts of the heat and how some are staying cool.
It's really warm. It's really warm.
The McAfees thought they could escape the worst of the heat wave in Kelowna by coming to Vancouver.
We figured it might be cooler down here.
But there's little relief, even near the coast.
You can't get cool.
On Sunday, BC shattered 60 heat records. By Monday afternoon, more than 50 and counting. Only 40% of homes here have air conditioning.
I couldn't hardly get any sleep last night.
No shirts, no pants off. That's basically our life right now.
And if it's that bad in Vancouver, it's worse further inland, like Abbotsford, where it felt like 50 degrees with the humidity. Community groups offer some relief.
Do I stay in my apartment and pass out and have nobody know? Or do I come out here and breathe the air and it be in the heat? It's like a catch-22. You don't really know what to do.
87-year-old Jack Gibson has Alzheimer's. His Langley care home doesn't have air conditioning. That worries his daughter.
I think any child to see their parent in a situation where there's any form of discomfort is not a comfortable situation by any means.
Staff are doing their best to help residents, she says.
Taking tea towels, putting them in the freezer and using those to try and cool them down.
The sweltering conditions forced schools and some businesses to close.
Our kitchen is stifling. We can't let our kitchen staff operate in this weather.
Others struggle to meet the skyrocketing demand for air conditioners and fans.
We had 159 fans show up today, and they're basically gone.
In Victoria, the punishing heat buckled sidewalks, while near Pemberton, rapidly melting mountain snow prompted flood watches. All as hospital ERs filled with cases of heat exhaustion. It's clear these temperatures aren't fit for man nor beast.
As predicted, this heat has been dangerous. So, Katie, what are we seeing in terms of an increase in people being sent to hospital?
Well, you know, we've got some fresh eye-popping numbers from BC Emergency Health Services today. We learned that there were 180 paramedic calls for heat exhaustion over this past weekend and 50 calls for heat stroke. Now, to put that into context, last June there were just 14 such calls. So that's what this heat wave has done. The other numbers that are really interesting to follow are energy consumption. So BC Hydro keeps telling us we keep breaking our summer energy consumption records. And so we did it again last night as people that have AC were cranking it up, just trying to get through the night. And BC Hydro fully expects we're going to shatter that record again tonight as people try to get through the night. Anita?
No doubt. Katie Nicholson reporting for us tonight from Granville Island. Thank you. And as Katie mentioned in her story, seniors facilities say it's a struggle to help residents cope with this heat. But as Susanna De Silva reports, some of their families are worried not enough is being done.
It's completely bone dry.
Residents say a wet towel over the vent was the recommendation of a property manager, an attempt to dull the heat blowing into the hallways.
I have this fan that's just blowing hot air.
Catherine Stafford lives on the top floor of a 4-story affordable housing building.
I have multiple health issues, and I believe it needs to be changed and fixed.
She and fellow residents have now been granted access to an air-conditioned common room, but the nights are a struggle.
For somebody with a spinal cord injury, my thermostat doesn't work like everyone. it really affects. I just can't shed the heat.
They say there have been discussions for years about a better cooling system, but that costs money, a challenge for nonprofits like the neighborhood house that operates the building. No one from the Kitts neighborhood house was available, but they did set up a cooling center at a nearby community hall. And the concern even greater for those who have family in facilities who are unable to care for themselves. Derek Andrews' wife has dementia and is nearly mute.
She only in 40 minutes said 3 words: hot, hot, hot.
He says he was told residents are only allowed to open windows 4 inches, and he would need to buy his wife a fan. He says he was disturbed to hear what is considered a safe room temperature.
Her room at 10:30 this morning was 36 degrees. And I told 36 degrees, well, that's comfortable. Well, by no measure could that be considered comfortable. It cannot be considered safe.
Someone at the facility told us windows will now be allowed to open wider, and regular checks are being made of residents' room temperatures, and that they were inspected today by Vancouver Coastal Health. No one from the health authority responded about what the regulations are in place.
We may need to design nursing homes to ensure that everyone has ventilation, but also air conditioning.
Luckily for Stafford, members of the community saw a Facebook post she made and paid for a hotel for 2 nights. But tomorrow, she is thinking she may have to sleep in her car in the underground parking lot to keep cool. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
And people living on the streets throughout the province are also suffering.
We're trying to make sure that we can get as many bottles of water to people as we can, and just, you know, let people know what some of the places they can go to, some of the cooling centers and things like that, to the best of what we can do. But it's still, I mean, it's unbearable.
Support workers' top concerns are dehydration, heat stroke, and prolonged exposure to sun. Cooling stations are open in Vancouver and cities throughout BC. Many have seen high numbers of people coming through. Okay, this heat has already been devastating for farmers in the Fraser Valley, hitting their pocketbooks hard. Our Zara Premji is at a berry farm in Abbotsford. Zara, you've seen the damage firsthand. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Anita, I mean, you can look at me right now. You know it's hot out here. Let's first say Abbotsford has broken one of its own records, 42 degrees the highest and 50 with the humidex. So absolutely just scorching hot here. As you mentioned, a lot of devastation on the farms. We are on a farm here in Abbotsford. Take a look over here. So here are some raspberries that are supposed to be red. If you take a look at this right now, it is not red. It is completely white. It is just done. You look at some of the leaves up here, up top, you can just grab it. You can just squish it. It's really bad for the farmers down here. Take a look on this side. This is the side they said could be potentially salvageable. So if you look at the berries over here, there is some red, again, mixed in with some white. So again, they don't know if any of these berries are going to be salvageable. It is quite horrendous here. Take a look at some of the photos that were sent in to us from the owner of this farm. You could see in the photos exactly what I just showed you. It is very hot. What they say over here is that the rows and rows that you're seeing here, over 90-hectare farm of this space, basically they say about 75% of it probably done for, probably not able to salvage these berries. They don't know if it'll even work out for the next season. Take a listen to what one of the co-owners had to say.
It's an unprecedented weather event. I've been part of the farm my whole life, and I'm nearly 40 years old, and I've never experienced anything like this. With these clear skies and feels like 50 out here, nothing can survive.
Yeah, Anita, it is, I mean, again, you can see it is very, very hot here. You heard from the co-owner, there is going to be a lot of difficulty for these farms. They say they're probably, again, going to lose about 75% of their profits. And a lot of the growth happening on the other side over there is for berries for the next year. They said, if you take a look at these leaves over here, you can see they look like they could be okay, but then you look a little further down over here and they're starting to just scorch off the edges. You can see the edges over here, and they say that's what it's looking like on the berries that they're trying to save for next year. Again, they don't know if they're going to be able to save it. They don't know how many thousands of dollars they're going to be out, because again, this is just the beginning, and they don't know what the rest of the season will hold. They said, you know, climate change is real. This is a very real factor. This is something a lot of us are alive to, especially this week. Anita.
No doubt, Zara. Thank you. And please get to some shade. A fire near Peachland today closed Highway 97 between Kelowna and Osoyoos for part of the morning. The blaze, which is believed to be human-caused, broke out just after 9 a.m. and quickly grew to 0.3 hectares in size. 3 air tankers took on the flames from above. Traffic was reopened just after noon. And the fire risk is so high, the province is putting a burning ban in place on all open flames. That includes cooking fires, fireworks, burning barrels, and controlled brush fires. The ban comes into effect Wednesday at noon and will last until mid-October unless it's rescinded earlier. And as Katie Nicholson mentioned earlier in the show, that heat is also bringing flooding to parts of BC. Pemberton Valley is under evacuation order. The record-shattering temperatures are resulting in a snow melt, rapidly pushing river levels dangerously high. Sandbagging is happening around the Lillooet rivers and Green rivers. Okay, I want to get more on this now from meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Jo, today was the hottest day for much of BC. What records have stood out for you?
Yeah, what a wild day after an exceptional weekend, Anita. I want to take you right to some of the numbers I've just collected across the province, starting with Lytton, as we heard earlier, breaking yet again the all-time Canada hottest temperature record that was set in 1937 in Saskatchewan. We broke it on Saturday, broke it on Sunday, and now again into the high 47s, even 48s by the time we get done with today. We'll wait for the official number. Just to put this into context, I thought I would check Australia's all-time hottest temperature. That's 50 degrees. We are getting scarily close to that number. Victoria, downtown hit 40 degrees. That was an all-time record for them. Abbotsford, as Zara mentioned, 50 humidex. I felt I was a little brazen earlier last week saying that we could get close to 50 humidexes, and now we're talking 50 temperatures. And yes, the lowest temperature Vancouver hit overnight was a 22. It's oppressive stuff. Humidex hanging around 27. I just wanted to mention Seattle. Seattle has now surpassed New York, Chicago, couple of other big East Coast cities for all-time hottest temperature. There are the heat warnings, and I do want to mention we also have poor air quality statements in effect for Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley, and Prince George. That is not smoke from wildfires. For the smoke that you're seeing, or the haze, I should say, is the pollution. This heat dome is cooking the air below, mixing with those fine particulate matters, and that's creating pollution. That's what you're seeing out there. But Anita, I've got to end on that fire danger map. Just incredibly high for this time of the year. I know I keep saying it, but this is a setup meteorologists right across the country did not expect to see this early in the season or this early in the decade.
Scary stuff, Jo. Thank you. And there's a warning to pet owners from vets tonight. They say the heat has already led to massive surge in heat stroke visits. And as Isabel Regam tells us, it's proven to be deadly for some animals.
Staff at this animal hospital in North Vancouver have seen a spike in pets experiencing heat strokes this weekend.
To be honest with how hot it is today, we're expecting more, and we're aware of more that are on their way down as well.
Kanesha Bush-McLean is a vet technician in the Fraser Valley. This weekend alone, she's seen over a dozen animals die from this heat.
There were multiple pets that had passed away at home. There were pets that had passed away trying to get into the clinic, as they were driving in to be seen.
Vets say it's important this week to keep your pets as cool as possible by keeping them indoors at peak hours and having fans set up. They say to watch for a variety of signs.
Wanting to find shade, wanting to drink more water. Sometimes they can be more non-specific, lethargy, vomiting, diarrhea.
And it's not just cats and dogs we need to watch for. Birds and rabbits have also been dying this weekend.
We've even heard stories of farmers and their livestock that don't necessarily have the cooling needs for such large quantities of large animals.
If your pet is behaving unusually and you're not sure whether or not it's a symptom related to heat, you're advised to call your local vet just to be safe. Isabel Regam, CBC News, West Vancouver.
3 people have died in a nighttime boat crash at Seton Lake near Lillooet. It happened yesterday. A witness says they saw a powerboat speed past them at around 2 a.m., followed by a loud bang. Search and rescue teams couldn't get out right away because it was still dark. Shortly after 7 a.m., another boater found the craft partially capsized and 3 bodies in the water nearby. The crash happened about a kilometer from shore. And during the NHL playoffs on CBC, our timing is a little bit different. We'll be on every weeknight at 6 p.m. online, streaming on CBC Gem, YouTube, and Facebook. And then we'll be on air on television after the hockey game each evening. Those times will vary depending on when the game starts and when it ends. You can always watch our show on demand, streaming at our website, cbc.ca/BC. A slow and steady decline of COVID cases. They're continuing to drop in BC. How vaccines are helping turn the tide next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A very important figure in Canadian history is featured in today's Google Doodle. It's a tribute to the late Mary Two-Axe Earley. As Gunhay CEO Deere reports, the Trailblazers' efforts for Indigenous women's rights helped bring changes to the Indian Act 36 years ago.
I wanted the doodle to show her prominence, I guess, her, the impact of the work she did. It took her entire life to accomplish this.
This digital work tells the story of a Kanien'kehá:ka woman who changed Canada. Artist Star Horn says she's hoping today's Google Doodle will help raise awareness about the legacy of the late Mary Two-Axe Earley, who spent her life fighting against gender discrimination in the Indian Act.
I had a vision that I one day would be free again, to be an Indian.
I married a white man in 1938, and yet there's that law that you're not Indian anymore when you marry a non-Indian.
For decades, First Nations women who married a non-status man were stripped of their Indian status, as were their children.
A law can make your own brother discriminate against you, like he's Indian and you're not.
But on this day in 1985, Bill C-31 was passed, reinstating her Indian status and that of thousands of others.
Mary is just such an important figure in Canadian history. It's time that her story becomes more well known.
Courtney Montour is a Kanien'kehá:ka filmmaker from the same community as Two-Axe Earley. She wrote and directed a documentary that dives into her life and legacy. Horn is also from Kahnawake.
I wanted her family to be proud of it. I wanted them to know how important what she means to everybody. I wanted people to know her impact.
Advocates say that Two-Axe Earley's fight for Indigenous women's rights needs highlighting because it's not over yet. The National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls called for the elimination of lingering gender-based discrimination in the Indian Act.
So it's so important that it's going to have this, this reach across Canada, that I just want more people to know her name and understand that this isn't something of the past.
No doubt, Mary Two-Axe Earley would agree. Gunhay Deere, CBC News, Kahnawake. To COVID-19 now, 5 people in BC died from the virus over the weekend, including a person in their 20s in Interior Health. There were 48 new cases per day on average over the past 3 days.
Our Tanya Fletcher is here now with the latest. Tanya, today's modeling data is showing encouraging signs about vaccine effectiveness. What are we seeing?
Yes, BC recently tested 60,000 vaccinated people between the ages of 50 and 69. And the study shows immunizations are preventing infections in 7 out of 10 people. Look at the left at this chart here. The purple bar shows the overall effectiveness, topping 70%. In the middle, the blue bar shows the mRNA vaccines. So Pfizer and Moderna are the highest, near 80% effectiveness. And on the right, the pink bar shows the viral vector vaccines. So AstraZeneca, Covishield are lower at just over 60%. Now, overall, these are very encouraging signs, says Dr. Bonnie Henry.
So we have overall a 70% vaccine effectiveness. And this is really good news. It tells us that these vaccines are working in all age groups.
The modeling also detailed breakthrough cases. That's how many people are contracting the virus even after being vaccinated. And overall, BC is seeing about a 2% rate of breakthrough infections. The gray line at the top is COVID cases among unvaccinated people or those who became infected less than 3 weeks after getting their first shot. The blue line in the middle is case rates among vaccinated people at least 3 weeks after 1 dose. And the pink line at the bottom shows infections among people a week or more after they got their second dose. So what does this all mean for moving to the next phase of reopening on July 1st as planned? Well, we'll find out tomorrow at a press conference featuring the Premier. And here's a hint Dr. Henry said today, things are looking, quote, really good. Anita?
I'm sure people will be happy about that. Thanks, Tanya. And criticism tonight from Shaw Communications employees who say they haven't been given time off to go get their COVID vaccines. The rule allowing for 3 hours off work only applies to BC-regulated employers, and the telecom giant is federally regulated. As Balpuri of the CBC Impact team reports, that's put technicians and management at Shaw at odds.
I was surprised and dismayed.
Anxious for his COVID vaccine, this Shaw installer was told he couldn't have time off work to get it. He spoke on the condition of anonymity.
Everyone that I've encountered has been flat out shocked that a company wouldn't want their workers to be vaccinated as quickly as possible if they wanted to be.
Provincially regulated employees in BC are allowed 3 hours off work to get their vaccine, but telecom workers are federally regulated.
Mom and pop shops have to make the commitment to give their provincially regulated employees to get the vaccine. And an employer like Shaw Communications with thousands of employers, multi-million-dollar company can't make this commitment. It really is shameful.
Shaw says the technicians are wrong. It offers all employees the ability to take time from their workday as their role allows. If an employee is in a role that does not offer flexibility, employees are able to use personal days. The Technicians Union wants the federal labour minister to mandate federally regulated employers to comply with BC law or match it with a law of its own. The vast majority of federally regulated workplaces are giving their employees time off to get their vaccines. The minister, Philomena Tassi, says she's concerned about reports to the contrary and will follow up with those companies to find a solution. Legislation, however, is unlikely to happen at this point in the pandemic.
I think it's outrageous that any company, any outlier like this continues to drag their feet when we all need to step up.
Do we want to make sure that everybody gets vaccinated quickly? Yes. Should all parties cooperate to make sure that workers can go get vaccinated and not lose pay? Absolutely.
Technicians are in and out of homes and businesses multiple times a day. Not getting vaccinated quickly, they say, is a risk for them and their clients. Finding first vaccine appointments outside of work was tough.
That caused up to a 10-day delay, like in my case, of getting this vaccine. After hours appointments were much harder to get than working hours.
His second shot is due in a few weeks. Balpuri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A look at the North Shore Mountains tonight, a day of record heat in BC. Johanna Wagstaffe has more on why this is happening next.
The CBC News with Peter Mansbridge.
Good evening. Terry Fox died this morning in a British Columbia hospital 1 month before his 23rd birthday. His family was with him. Hospital officials broke the news at daybreak. Sheldon Turcotte was there.
It was shortly after dawn at the Royal Columbian Hospital in New Westminster when the news of Terry's death was announced by the Deputy Director of Nursing, who had known Terry as a patient for more than 4 years and who had remained in the hospital for the past week without going home.
Terry has completed the last kilometer of his marathon. A short while ago, at approximately 25 to 5 BC time, he died. He died surrounded by love. The love of his family, all of whom were with him, and the love and prayers of the entire nation. He has left us a legacy of hope, which I think will live and become a part of our nation's heritage. He was a friend, and I'm going to miss him.
There is a bit of Terry Fox in all of us. Royal Columbian Hospital deems it a great honor to have been called upon to serve to the best of our ability a great son of Canada. May he rest in peace.
Terry Fox died peacefully. He had slipped into a deep coma during the night, and his doctors decided not to use artificial life support systems in order that he should have dignity in death as he had in life. Sheldon Turcotte, CBC News, Vancouver.